Sam Carter, frontman for Architects, joining us this evening. First time on this show, so I'm super excited to learn more about you, learn more about the band. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for all the support.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been playing Animals. We'll get into that for sure. But I want to do a little bit of the back stuff because you might be new to a lot of our listeners. This is the first Architect song we've played since I've been hosting the show, and that's been 5 years. So I do believe this will be an introduction for many people. I know you got your start with some drum lessons. So did you see yourself as a drummer, and when did that role shift into frontman?
I think I started learning drums when I was about 13 years old. Yeah, about 13. And that was just at school, like through, wanting to try and do something more creative. I think I was never like great at school, and numbers and everything sort of went over my head. So it was the first thing that I really found that I sort of fell in love with, and it sort of just seemed to fall into place. And then really it just felt like more of like a, how can I make this work? Like, how can I make this my full-time thing? And I think from a young age, it was just practice. And then through playing in like a bunch of local bands, I think when I auditioned for Architects, I was in like 5 different bands, and all of them sounded completely different. And I would go to work, and then I would take my cymbals with me to work and my like snare drum. And then I would go from work every single night, like Monday to Friday, and go to a different band practice after work. And yeah, it was really fun, but also it's, I feel for drummers, especially young drummers, there's a lot of stuff to carry around. And then Ali, who plays bass in Architects, worked on the same street that I did one lunchtime he came in and was like, oh, our singer's left if you want to try out. And I was like, oh, I can't play like double kick drums. I'm not that kind of drummer. And he was like, no, we want you to try and sing. Because I did some like backing vocals for a few bands. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go. And then the rest is history. Like
That's
15,
so cool.
16 years later, yeah.
5 bands at a time. I can't even imagine, because those young bands are always gigging as is. So you must have been like nonstop. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was crazy, but it was kind of like just the perfect way to, rehearse, just play every night, 5 different kind of styles of music. And yeah, I just wanted one of them to work out, so I didn't have to have a normal job.
You picked the right one, apparently.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I think it's pretty cool that Joel and Benji Madden manage you guys. I didn't even realize they manage bands. We all know them, of course, from being musicians with Good Charlotte. But I wonder, like, what are they like as managers?
They're amazing. They're absolutely incredible. I think it's funny how that whole thing sort of worked out, because Joey, who is our actual manager, who works for Madden, we've had Joey since maybe our 2nd record, I think. But I had another friend that had done some work for Good Charlotte, had toured with them. And he'd come to my house like after a tour, and we were having a few drinks, and he was like, they're the best people, they're so kind. I can't tell you, like, in all the years of touring with bands, how much they looked out for me, and they didn't need to. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. I grew up a fan of Good Charlotte, and I think hearing that your like heroes are really good guys is always like a winner. And the night after that, Joey, my manager, hit me up and was like, oh, I've been approached to work with the Maddens to start like this company for where we start managing bands and stuff. How do you feel about it? And I was like, well, yeah, I feel really good, because I just had this conversation last night that you don't even know about. And they're just the greatest. Like the amount of time and money and effort they put into like harboring like young bands and creating and letting people be creative is amazing. For a lot of the bands that don't go anywhere, they're still giving their time and energy to try and help people create. And yeah, they're just so cool. And they've been around the block and been like, the kind of had major labels kind of screw them over, and had people kind of like tread on them and come out the other side. And I think through those lessons that they've learned, they can really give us and other bands some wisdom.
Do you believe in that, like, synchronicity, and that there are no coincidences, and that conversation definitely was meant to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the funniest thing I've had of that was I sang with Good Charlotte at Brixton Academy like 3 or 4 years ago. And 15 years before that, I was the first person in the queue at that show at Brixton Academy. And 15 years later, I'm on stage singing with him, which is crazy.
Crazy. That's crazy. All right, let's talk about the upcoming album For Those Who Wish to Exist. It's the band's 9th studio album. I guess we should start with the cover art, which I'm still trying to figure out. Is it a man, an astronaut in a church, or a hazmat suit wearing guy in a church? I'm like, unclear.
Is astronaut guy.
Okay, and what is the message there?
I think it's open for interpretation, really, but I think the real thing is we're stuck in the middle of this, and no one has the right answers, really, do they? You know, we've got like people that are thinking religion's the way, people thinking science is the way. Really, we don't have a clue what happens at the end of it. We just all know that we all want to survive, and we all want to get through this sort of crazy time that we're in right now. I think, you know, looking around at the world and being faced with climate change and the sort of issues that we're faced with, whether it be politically or even just down to conversations with even friends, things can feel really volatile. But really, at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And I think the front cover's really thought-provoking, because you're like, oh, you know, these two sort of worlds meeting together is super interesting. Yeah. And it reminds me of sort of like, you know, like those old like 70s records where you like look at it and straight away you don't need a band name plastered across it. You're like, oh, cool, I get this. So yeah, it's got a proper like Pink Floyd sort of Abbey Road vibe about it, which I love.
Very cool. The last 3 records, Architects records, have been, you know, dealing with illness and death and grieving. If you would speak to Tom's character and his music abilities and what he meant to this band just for a second. He was a founding guitarist of Architects. He was diagnosed and passed of cancer. But speak specifically about the void left, because I know how much of him was this band.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think we're still here. And I think for a long time, none of us really knew what we were going to do and whether we were going to be able to carry on. But I think it's testament to his brother, Dan, really, that he wanted to keep going. And, you know, we all pulled together and learned how to do it on a really big scale. You know, it was almost like a debut release in front of people after like 7 records, which is crazy. I don't know many people that have had to do that. But I think it's just, you know, testament to just getting through it. We had to just get through it. You know, the only way out of a situation like that is just dealing with it. You know, everyone's going to go through it at some point. And, you know, the highs were there, obviously, throughout, you know, releasing the record and going on tour and playing some amazing shows. But there was also lows of, you know, feeling sort of guilty that, you know, we were carrying on without him and whether it was the right thing. You know, we still have these questions, but at the end of the day, you can't sit still. You know, life goes on, and you have to, you know, try and be an example for other people that are going to go through the same thing.
If chapter 8, if you will, was about grieving, what is chapter 9? What is this new record? What is this new era ushering in for Architects, besides a lot of questions, from what I understand?
I think it's just like a fresh start, just starting again and being able to be as creative as we want to be, feeling no pressure from anyone other than just the excitement to be in the position to put out a 9th record, and believing in ourselves more than the last one, because we've had more time to develop as songwriters and develop as artists. So yeah, I think it's just exciting. You know, it feels like being able to do this after this amount of time always feels really special, but being able to do it and, you know, not living in the constraints of what people think your band should sound like, and being able to just be like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and we're going to sound what we want to sound like. And seemingly it you know, is apparently starting to be our most successful record ever. So yeah, that's really exciting.
Animals, as I mentioned earlier, we've been playing it on Loudwire nights. It's cracked the top 20 in rock radio, and it's on the way up. It's the most British song we play, right? Stop the Rot, Lost the Plot, like, you know, right away.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about how that song came together? I know Dan is the lyricist, but tell us about that process.
Yeah. We work really closely together. So he records all the vocals and all the way through demos to like full recording. But this one came together super, super easy, like probably the most easy of the whole record. And it was one of the last ones we finished. we were in Bali actually when we were doing it, because we'd played a festival in Australia, and on the way back we were like, we're going to do some writing in Australia, because Dan was going to move over there for a bit, but he didn't in the end. And there was those fires out there, so we needed to move from where we were going to stay, because it was like hectic and the air quality was nuts and it was dangerous. So we went to Bali instead. And I remember we'd sort of listened through to everything that we'd done, and we all had a conversation together, just being like, we need one more song, kind of in a sort of weird, like a heavier industrial sort of world, to sort of merge everything together. And we emailed Josh, because he was at home with his daughter, and went to bed and woke up the next day, and he emailed over like a bunch of ideas. Then we wrote the song, reworked some of the ideas, went to bed and sent it to him, and then nothing's really changed since then. It was a really fast song that just came together through just the times being right, and yeah, the creative juices were flowing. And yeah, it's unbelievable like how much that song's hit. I mean, yeah, it's weird, you know, so many bands write songs to get on the radio and to get those chances, and I feel like if you go out of your way to write one of those songs, it never works out,
right? Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. But then if you just focus on like writing a good song, all of a sudden everything just falls into place, which has been super exciting.
Congratulations on the success.
Thank you.
I read that you're super, and I can totally relate to this, you're super hard on yourself in the studio. And I kind of wonder, is that because you put added pressure on yourself to do Dan's words justice, or is that just your personality in general? You're going to like beat yourself up, try to be as perfect as possible.
Yeah, I think you know, I have to make his words come to life. And I think, you know, I have to give the time and effort that he puts into the songs justice, and I really want people to feel that pain when they hear it. But then also, you know, I want to be the best vocalist I can possibly be, and I think, you know, having been around for this being our 9th record, I don't just want to be here just on merit of like, oh, you know, he's a good singer, but they've been around for a while. It's like, you know, I always feel like I can top myself, and every record do something new or something more exciting. And yeah, it's fun to have it, because I'm sort of like, well, I'll just look back one day and enjoy it, because for now it's just like, you know, there's just tunnel vision focus, like got to be the best. But yeah, you know, I'm sure release day I'll be able to relax a little bit and be like, oh, it's out there now.
It's soon, right? So February 26th, it's the last Friday of the month. It's coming up real soon. What are your thoughts? Nervous, excited? Are you one of these people who are like, it's my baby, and then I put it out into the world and it's yours? Like, what's your mentality on record release day?
I think that feeling of like giving it away, I think is true, but I think that's more for like the first single. So like the first single, I'm like, oh, I've had this for so long, and you know, I've lived with it, but now it's yours. But I think with the album, after the few singles have been out, I'm just like, let's just get this out. You know, I'm like, I've been sat on it for so long. I'm like, I just want people to hear it, so you can like have more open conversations about it and see which other songs really hit people in the feels. And yeah, I just can't wait. You know, I can't wait for it to be sort of released. And you know, me and Dan were talking last night. You know, after all this time, it's still, you know, we're counting down the days to a release, and it being the 9th one feels so, you know, surreal. But yeah, we're so stoked.
So excited. I saw that you guys did a live stream, and maybe it's because I'm American, and because I know that there's some like really legendary venues in New York that once I attended and went to them when I lived in New York, I was like, really, this is the venue? But I know you guys did that live stream at Prince Albert Hall. Is that what it?
Yeah, Royal Albert Hall. Yeah,
Royal Albert Hall, and it looks so beautiful, and it's been around since like 1850s or something, and it has so much history. Is it really as special as it is in my head to perform there? Okay.
It's honestly crazy. Like walking into that room, I mean, like especially growing up in England, like that's the one that like all the history's there. I mean, like Hendrix has played there, Dylan, the Beatles, like you name it. And then you're walking down the corridor, and then it's like Beyonce's played there as well, and Bowie's played there. Like everybody's played there. So to go on and do it in an empty room was like really haunting, because you're sort of like playing with like the ghosts of everybody, you know, like the seats are all lit up, and yeah, it was really magical. And yeah, I don't think, you know, many people get to play it, let alone play it with nobody in there. So yeah, it was kind of just like performing to this like amazing venue.
That's so cool.
But yeah, the connection with the fans was amazing. Like going and doing something like that in such a weird time. You know, a lot of people were doing live streams, and for us, it just felt really important to try and, you know, give people what they want, you know, give them their money's worth. So it was, important to make the one show that people see at the start of the campaign special.
Speaking of shows, any word on?
Yeah,
Are you hearing something I'm not?
I wish. I think the vaccine is seemingly going pretty well over here. That's all I really know. But yeah, I would love to. You know, as soon as we're allowed to go, we're gonna go. You know, it's there's a lot of plans that keep getting moved, and who knows. I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't even really look forward to those things really at the moment, because I'm, you know, once you look forward to them and then that date comes and goes, it's so heartbreaking, you know. So I'm just like, I'm just going to stay ready. Like, I'm just ready to go whenever we're allowed.
Seems to be your personality. We'll wrap on this one. I want to touch on the collabs on the record. So we have Winston McCall, Parkway Drive, who's got to be like the nicest, most put together human I've ever interviewed in the history of my interviews. You have Mike Kerr, Royal Blood. He's on Little Wonder. They have the #1 song on rock radio as we speak right now. So congratulations to them. And then you have Biffy Clyro as well. How do you guys choose who you want to work with? Some people want to work with their friends. Sometimes the label just marketing it makes sense. Other times it's like that dream collab. So where do these people fall into?
With Winston, we've been friends with them for so long. Like, we played their first ever like UK show like back in like 2006 or something, when I first played London. And then we've done like millions of tours with them since, and they've always looked after us and always been, you know, very kind to us. And they took us to Australia for the first time, and, you know, put us on in front of thousands of people out there. So yeah, they've always been great. So that was always going to happen one way or another. Either like I'd be on theirs or he'd be on ours. It was always like a conversation. But I'm so glad that happened. With Royal Blood, I grew up in a little village with Ben that plays drums. Like a tiny village, like we're talking like 10-20,000 people, like small. And then 2 bands have come out of there, which is pretty cool. Like, we lived on the opposite sides of the road, and we're best mates. And so like, through us doing well and them doing well, like it's really cool. Like, we talk every day. We both got dogs, and we're always chatting about that, and it's amazing. It's so great. So Mike is just a phenomenal singer and an amazing person, and we hit it off. I hit it off with Mike through my friendship with Ben, sort of just around the time that they'd started. And yeah, it was nice to sort of have a song where I really felt like it was written for him. Like, that part just felt so cool and rocky, and he absolutely smashed it. So yeah, that was great. And then with Simon, we've just been massive fans of Biffy since we were kids. Like, growing up, there's such an influence on us and on our band. And yeah, we've been like mutual sort of friends and sort of seen each other at award ceremonies and stuff. But yeah, he's a fan of us and we're a fan of him. So yeah, it made sense. And he got it sent back to us so quick. Yeah. We were like, do you want to do this? And he was like, yeah. And like 3 days later, it was like, here's the vocals. And we were like, okay, you've smashed it.
I'm still stuck on like, what are the odds that like 2 big bands come out of a 20,000 population town?
Yeah, it's such a weird town. It was it was funny, you know, like, actually the little village we were from, there was actually like quite a good scene for what it was. You know, there was like a youth, like a hall, and just bands would play there all the time. So we were just growing up, like playing shows to like 150 people or something. So you sort of got like a little bit of experience. So yeah, it was a weird town. But now we live in a different town, really close to each other. So it's all good.
You can't escape each other. All right.
No.
Well, now I do have to have one additional follow-up question, because you mentioned the dog, and I was going to ask you about the dog because I saw you were promoting some other station, and it's so cute and brown with the little white paws. And I'm like, what kind of dog is that?
She's a rescue. She's a Romanian rescue. So she was like a little street pup in Romania. And yeah, she's the best. She's called Sophia. I've had her for a while, and she's got a sister now called Lucky, that I found when we were on tour in Romania. I just found her in a car park outside our tour bus, and she was like, she looked really ill. So I spoke to the charity that I got Sophia through, and then yeah, she ended up coming home with me, and she was like 2 weeks away from dying.
Oh my God.
But not like nothing like super serious. But because she was on the streets, she couldn't just get the simple medication. So they got her, had an operation, and then 2 months later, she was just in my house in England. Now she's like, you know, living on like organic food with like personalized harnesses and instead of just being the street dog. So yeah, she won the lottery.
Same. My dog was found in a bucket, and now I'm like, Whole Foods chicken. Would you like?
Yeah.
Can I get? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just abnormally in love with her.
The best.
It is the best.
They're the best things in the world.
Agree. I agree. For those that wish to exist, it's the 9th studio album, Architects. Sam Carter is their front man. We look forward to hearing all of the music. We appreciate your time, Sam, and your patience. I'm sorry, I'm a Zoom moron. Thank you so much for hanging out and bearing with me.
Pleasure.
Hopefully we could speak again under less Zoomish circumstances.
Yeah, real life.
Like in person at a festival one day. Ooh, what a thought. Thank you for your time, Sam.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Take it easy.
Care. All right, you too.
Bye.